Hey everyone, welcome to the Lunch and Learn with Launch on this very warm Thursday. Today we are going to be, today what we're doing is we're bringing you a fantastic talk that Harry and Josh did at Building Brands last month, all about Google Shopping. And so for e-commerce brands, anyone who's selling anything online, this is super, super relevant. It's also very entertaining. There was a lot of demand to get these guys onto a bigger stage. So here we are today on LinkedIn. So we're going to go around, introduce ourselves. And today's little question is, you've got to say your most embarrassing pop song that you love. And because today is all themed around music, I believe. So go on then, Harry, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, I'm Harry, paid media manager at Launch. Pop song now, this is hard. It's really hard because you're exposing yourself as to the kind of music you listen to. The one that springs to mind is Olivia Rodrigo, Good For You. Now it just screams pop, and I know all the words, so I'm going to go with that. It's just, it's embarrassing, but there you go.
I love it. Embarrassing is good. That's the order of the day. Josh, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So I basically do the same job as Harry, but I'm a little bit older, so I'm a senior media manager. My song choice will also show that I'm a little bit older. I'm almost ashamed to say I'm not that embarrassed, but for me it would be "Flyby" by Blue. Massive tune.
That's a classic, and actually that leads on very nicely to the very boy band heavy deck that we've got today. But obviously I can't get away with not saying my embarrassing song. And this was brought to my attention today by, I'm of the generation that listens to Radio 2. And Scott Mills this morning was reminding us about Glenn Medeiros. Nothing's going to change my love for you, which now I've said it, is going to be in your head if you're of the right age for the rest of your life, probably. So apologies about that. But today, come on, people, we're going to be talking all about Google Shopping and how to get the most out of Google Shopping. And just before we kick off, just to remember that we are live on both LinkedIn and on YouTube today. If you're watching this back, you can't ask us questions live, but you can always hit us up on LinkedIn, message us or send an email. And also, just if you are watching live, you can drop questions in the comments and we'll be able to get to those at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to the guys. I'm going to disappear from the stage as I share their presentation, and fingers crossed the technology works. So over to you, Harry.
Thank you. So yeah, we've got top of the pops, research, optimize, and test your products for Google Shopping. I'm going to shout out Josh's logo, not because he told me to, but because it's very well deserved. So as Jay mentioned, we've got some pop references in here. Some of them might be cringeworthy. Some of them I think you're going to love. So let's see how we get on. So we're going to start off with what we're talking about today. I'm sure many of you in the audience or watching are familiar with how shopping ads are triggered and how they appear. But just as a recap, so they appear at the very top of the Google search page. So you've got above organic results and above Google search results, taking up probably the most real estate at the very top of the page. So you can't really miss them, but that's kind of just where they appear. In terms of what is Google Shopping, again, if you're in e-commerce, you probably already know, but just some key stats to kind of highlight just its importance and its place within the Google suite. So CPC typically 15 to 20% lower for Google Shopping than standard text ads and search, which is massive, particularly if you're on a lower budget. 85% of all Google ads clicks come through Google Shopping. So it's, again, a huge part of how Google uses its ads platform. And unsurprisingly, 93% of consumers consider visual appearance a key factor in decision making, just kind of highlighting how important shopping ads are to have that visual aspect compared to just your standard text ads. So the first of our pop references, but what makes up a shopping product? So you've got the front end attributes, which is what you see, similar to the ones that we had in the previous screenshot, just as you search, what is it that appears? But then you've got all the work that goes in the background. So similar to Lou Walsh, you've got the back end attributes and the things that Google see in order to determine when a product shows. So some of the examples on screen, you've got things like a green coat, a dark leather bag and red shoes. Instead of with a search ad where the search is actually just determined by, keywords, search terms, things like that, it's actually the back end attributes that link up to what someone's searching for. So we'll go into that in a bit more detail in a moment. But things like somebody searching for a green woman's coat, that isn't just led by the search. It's actually your back end attributes that determine when Google shows your product. So we'll come on to that a little bit more in a moment. So we've split optimizing, researching and testing your products into 3 different steps for the purpose of this. So this is the whole process all the way through from optimizations you can make, how you do research off the back of them, and then test and repeat so that you keep that cycle going. And that process never ends. Josh works in our CRO team, and he'll tell you that testing it's an ongoing process. You don't test once, tick it off and never do it again. You're constantly optimizing, researching and going again. So we'll start off with optimize. But before we go into kind of how you can optimize your listings, we want to just recap on how the whole process works. So in its most basic form, you start with your raw shopping XML feed, which then plugs into Merchant Center and then into Google Ads and then shopping listings off the back of that. If from this point you wanted to kind of build on that and start optimizing in different ways, one option you've got is a third-party platform. So the screenshot below and the one that we're using in this instance is Shoptimised. There are others out there, but Shoptimised, to be fair, is a really, really useful one. It makes optimizing things a lot easier. And where that slots in the process is you put your raw shopping XML feed into Shoptimised, which then kind of spits out another feed URL for you to use, puts that into Merchant Center, and then the rest of the process is the same. But it's at that in between the shopping feed and Merchant Center that you get to make those optimizations and kind of make changes to the feed to try and improve your shopping listings. Potentially a kind of lower scale option, or if you're a team that's working with a lower budget and you don't have the resource to manage a third-party platform, then there's another way of doing it through a supplemental feed, which, as you can see, slots in a slightly different part of the process. So you'd go from raw XML feed to Merchant Center, then into a Google Sheet, for example, and then into Google Ads and shopping listings. And what this Google Sheet or supplemental feed enables you to do is make changes manually within an Excel file or Google Sheet, and then re-upload that into the ads platform. So for things like shopping titles or any of the back-end attributes that we'll go into, you can change those there. It is a little bit more kind of finicky, I guess is the word, but it's still very much possible to do. Okay, so this every time. So when you kind of know how you're going to optimize, whether this is through, supplemental feeds or third-party platforms, you've got to do both adjust the front end and organize the back end, just so that you can make sure that you've got both sides covered. So in terms of adjusting the front end, so this is what the user's going to see. This is ultimately what's going to drive people through to your website from that Google shopping listing. So there's some best practices here from titles. So things like aiming for 75 to 150 characters, including the key product info, which will obviously be different depending on your industry and how many products you have, whether you have different color variants, size variants, etc. So this is all unique to you, and avoiding duplicates. So we've done a bit of an example below, which will show you how that looks in a second. But things like gender followed by brand, product name, I won't go through all of them, but just including those key product attributes in a set format. And then the way that can look as a Google shopping title is like so. So in this instance, we've got Adidas Original Samba in black and white, striped leather and size 10. So if you were a shoe brand, you could use a similar kind of template and then keep building on that for each product. So that'll make it a lot easier for you when you're optimizing listings, if you have a kind of template and a framework to follow. And it'll also help to make sure that the user sees the right information in the right order, rather than starting with, I don't know, size 10 and leather without actually getting to the point first off. Okay, so when you've optimized your titles, the next thing I guess is to look at imagery. So imagery is massively important. We went over earlier just how many people, 93%, consider a visual impact as part of their decision making. So your imagery really needs to stand out in those shopping listings. So things like high res imagery, trying lifestyle versus product shots, no text on the images. Some of those might get flagged in Merchant Center anyway, as you're not necessarily allowed overlay, but if you do sneak any through, it tends to not be recommended. And making sure that it's correct for each variant. You know, the example we showed earlier, having a green coat, if an orange coat turns up, you're probably unlikely to get that click and ultimately conversion that you're looking for. Now, imagery is something that a lot of people struggle with, and having good imagery as well is both important but also hard to come by, whether that's through resource or general photography, whatever that might be. So if you don't have any good lifestyle images, Google has now got a product studio in Merchant Center. So it's a completely free feature. So in terms of resource, it's really low scale, other than obviously the time that you put in. Can do things like replace backgrounds, generate lifestyle images. It can improve image resolution, and also now, but as a result of AI, it can transform the product image completely. So you will correctly be skeptical. Some of the output isn't amazing, but there is an example on screen where it can actually be done really well. So you can see you've got a standard just white background image, which might have been just from stock or from like a standard product shoot. And through Product Studio, you can turn that into what looks like an accurate lifestyle image to test as part of your optimization process. So there's an example on screen just how the back end of Product Studio works. But my first recommendation would be just to go in and try it. If you have a Merchant Center account, you could spend 5, 10, 15 minutes just giving it a go and seeing what it outputs. So the first step is selecting the image that you want to test it with to optimize, then describing the product. You can be as descriptive or as vague as you like. Obviously, the more you put into these AI platforms, the best you get out. But the most important step is describing the scene. So this is where, in terms of like ChatGPT, you would put in your prompt. So this is how you're going to describe to Google what background you're looking for. So the more accurate the product description and the more accurate the scene, you're likely to get the best results. And then obviously the process after this would be you'll be presented with 4 images, and it's really simple to just select one and apply that to that product listing within Merchant Center. So the whole process is really, really smooth. In terms of then organizing the back end, so you've sorted out the front end, what the user's going to see. This is your Louis Walsh, if you like. So the back end attributes, what we've got on screen is a simple kind of breakdown of what the back end attributes are. There's a lot more than we could fit on there, but it just kind of shows you things like product highlights, product type, Google product category, age group. The list does go on, and you'll be surprised how many of those are actually empty a lot of the time when you look at the back end of your feed, just because people often go for the most important ones and leave out a lot more information. So on the right hand side is a kind of best practice. You want to make sure as many of those are filled out as possible, just to feed into Google what your product is, how people can find it, so that when people are searching, they've got the best chance of seeing your ads and not a competitor's. Cool.
Ideal.
I'll hand it to Josh to carry on from research and test.
So yeah, Harry has done a wonderful job there of explaining to us what shopping listings are, how they work, and how we can optimize them. But how can we take those optimizations, not only of our shopping ads, but also our website, our creative, and just generally our offering as well, to the next level? How do we keep customers coming back for good, so to speak? We research. I'm glad that reference wasn't lost on you, Harry. So we've broken research up into 3 main areas: assessing the competition, talking to your customers, and quantitative research. And first of all, we'll get into assessing the competition. So when we're talking about assessing the competition, what specifically do we mean? So what I'd love everyone either listening or watching this back to do after this, ideally, like keep listening for now. But after this, is just Google a search term that you would like to be appearing for on shopping, and literally just check the shopping listings, how they appear, and ask yourself the questions around the circle there. Straight away, it will give you a really solid picture of the landscape that you're up against. It'll help you understand where you're potentially falling short, maybe, and it'll also give you some really nice opportunities where you can optimize to kind of help you stand out. Appreciate that sounds super basic, but it's a really good place to start if you're not kind of doing that activity already. So if we take a look at this example here, if you search blue women's shirt and then just put yourself in the consumer's shoes, what out of those listings there particularly stands out to you? Is it the fact there's some lifestyle imagery in there at the end? Is it the fact there's reviews in there? Are the price points of your competitors significantly better or worse than yours? Are you offering better delivery? All those kind of things can factor into understanding why your shopping listings are performing in the way that they are, or where there might be gaps for you. And it also can give good insight into things like, do your competitors have an offer on a certain product, for example, as well, that you don't have? So it really is just that real basic level of just checking in, seeing what's happening, and assessing the landscape. So after we've done that, if we kind of look at next talking to the people who know your brand best, your happiest customers, essentially. Again, it's another one that's going to sound so obvious, but it amazes us how often it's neglected. These people, like your happiest customers, the ones who come back to you and buy season after season, month after month, they're the ones who do know your business well, and they can really help you understand the why behind it, why they're making that purchase, why they're booking with you, etc. But the thing is, you can ask them really clever questions as well around what are their perceptions of you as a brand? How does that compare to competitors, for example? Are they with you because it's price led? Is it quality led? Is it material led? Is it because you're based in the UK? Like whatever it is. We normally find that like a small voucher incentive can buy around 30 minutes of your customer's time pretty easily, which is more than enough time to get across those kind of questions and get those insights as well. And during that time, you can get direct feedback on the shopping listings in a similar way to how we looked previously, where we could just show them, an example of where you might appear in a shopping listing and ask them what stands out, but also go deeper into those questions about understanding where you sit in the landscape as a business from a customer's perspective as well. We have actually got a QR code on screen here, which links to our resource page, which has got loads of kind of cool stuff around it in terms of customer research. But we're also going to put a link in the comments as well, which contains a kind of template set of questions, which can get you started with digging out some valuable insight for your customers as well. Cool. So once we've spoken to our customers, and we've got that kind of really nice qualitative data from a small sample of customers there, what we might want to look to do is scale up our learnings and get some quantitative data as well. To do this, we'd recommend using a platform like Listener. There are other ones as well you can use. This is just one that we've used. It's really cost effective. You can kind of scale according to your budget with it. And there's kind of things like free options and free trials to take advantage of as well if you're just starting out with it. It offers a load of services in terms of quantitative data, but probably most relevant for shopping listings specifically is things like 5-second testing. So it kind of does what it says on the tin. You will show a user some creative, or it might be a shopping listing, or it might be a product page. You show them that, and within the first 5 seconds, and the user will kind of record their response within the first 5 seconds to that page to kind of get a first impression of your product. So yeah, like I say, that could be a product page, for example. Now, if it jumps out to a lot of users that your product imagery is poor or the price point seems high, there's a really good insight in there straight away to understand, okay, this might be why this product is struggling or this product's working, etc. And that's where we can really kind of extrapolate those learnings and apply them to your shopping listings as well. So if it is an imagery issue, that's where we need to look at changing our images in our shopping listings. If it's a price point, can we look at doing an offer on that product specifically to see if that helps? If users are unsure about the delivery messaging, can we bring that in? If the title of the product isn't clear, do we change that? So there's loads of stuff that we can kind of tap into as well. And this goes really well hand in hand with the other bits of research that we've spoken about. And you want to try and tie that all in together to give you the biggest set of data you can to kind of go on and make these decisions. Cool. So if we've kind of looked at doing some research and understanding our customers and how we can understand kind of wider landscape a little bit, how can we test and learn and measure success moving forward? So there are so many different routes you could take. I mean, there are so many different routes we could take with these images, and we went with Jedward. There's so many routes you can take with how you do this. We've literally just broken it down to two areas which we think are probably the most essential to start with and the most relevant for shopping specifically. But always happy to chat about testing more and more. Like Harry mentioned, I'm part of the experimentation team at launch, so it's a massive part of my job is just continuously looking at testing things. So always happy to chat about it as well. But we've broken this down into cloning products and measuring success. So if we go into cloning products to start with, so off the bat, it sounds quite techy because it's got the word cloning in it, but it's actually super simple. If you are using a third party like Shoptimise, like Harry mentioned earlier, it should be pretty apparent how to do this within the platform. There's normally literally a clone product button if you click on a product. I mean, you can do it within Sheets as well in the way that Harry showed, using a supplemental feed, but it is a little bit trickier. But there are ways around it. But yeah, if you are using a third-party platform, this is a bit of a no-brainer to test out. Essentially, what it does is it creates an exact duplicate of your product in your feed to which you can make edits to the duplicate. So in the example we've got here on screen, we've got the same bangle there, but we've added the word authentic to the start of the one that we want to test. And then we want to compare, do we get a better click-through rate? Do we get a better conversion rate if we use the word authentic in the title? But, you can change loads of stuff with that. It might be that we put a lifestyle image instead. We might have changed the title in a different way. And we might have changed the backend attributes, etc. So there's plenty of stuff we can test there, but that's just one example. So that's pretty straightforward to do. You can see the results then quite clearly within Google Ads and Merchant Center as well, which we'll come on to in this next section, which is looking at measuring success. So if you've either got the pleasure or the pain of working with GA4 every day, depending on how you want to look at it, some of these screenshots will make a lot of sense to you anyway, and you understand what they are. But you should quite clearly be able to see how your shopping is performing, specifically within GA4. If you're running them across Performance Max campaigns, they'll appear slightly differently, and that will be under cross network. But for the purpose of people doing simply shopping ads, it will look like the above, where you should just type in shopping, and that comes up in your default channel group report there. If you can't see your organic shopping in there, there might be quite an obvious reason as to why it's not obvious, but there's something that Google have implemented, which basically means we can turn that on quite easily, which I'll run through briefly after this. So you can see the gap between your paid and organic shopping, which can be really insightful. In any case, you can see that at a top level in that top screenshot there. You've also got other reports which will let you look deeper into specific product detail as well. So well worth drilling into GA4 and seeing what you can find in there at a specific product level. The other one is Merchant Center itself, which is where the bottom screenshot's from. it's a little bit underutilized from a reporting standpoint. There's some really nice insight you can get directly from Merchant Center. So again, I'd recommend after this, just spending 5 minutes playing around with the reporting in there, seeing what you can find. It does do a really nice split if you've got everything set up properly between organic and your ad listings. You get loads of info on what who you're appearing against, what competitors are in there, and also, specific product performance as well. So definitely would recommend going away and having a bit of a deep dive in there to see what you can find. So as I mentioned before, if you are running shopping ads, this is a really, really quick check to do. So again, after this, definitely go away and just check it quickly. And it will unlock some more data for you basically in GA4 if it's not already sorted. But basically, if you go into Merchant Center, you go on the settings cog and then go into apps and services. And then you just literally check if Merchant Center is connected to GA4. If it is, that's great. If it's not, you're probably missing out on what part of your organic shopping listings are playing. So it should be pretty simple. It's on my LinkedIn as well. If you want to go and check that out. I also post pictures of my cat on there as well. So feel free to shopping. I'm also your man. But in any case, definitely go and check this because it literally takes 2 minutes and it does unlock some really nice data for you in GA4. And obviously, like a bit of a, every deck at the moment has to mention AI in some case, in some way. We've not really touched we've only really scratched the surface of it, like Harry mentioned with Product Studio.
Yeah.
But yeah, Harry, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing. Yeah, we haven't gone into it too much. There's obviously a lot more that's still changing in the landscape with AI, and as it changes, all of these attributes become more and more important, right? So the example on screen just shows the product titles that we did, and it kind of shows the same product, but how important those product titles, reviews, and all of the front end attributes become.
Yeah, exactly. And people are starting to shop or use things like ChatGPT more and more to help with their purchasing decisions. So and it will use the back end attributes, the front end attributes to decide what are the best. If I'm looking for the best place to buy black and white Adidas Sambas, it will use all that information we're providing to give it. So not only is it beneficial for your Google listings, but also people who are using things like LLMs, for example. So it's doubly important almost. And this is obviously going to just keep growing and growing as well. So yeah, make sure, you've got everything in tip-top shape, not only for your shopping listings, but also for the growth of these kind of AI platforms as well.
Awesome, guys. That was really, really interesting. And yeah, you're right. You can't not mention AI. Now, people are being very, very quiet with the questions. So I'm going to give you one of my own questions. How are you finding using, from a performance point of view, those background images? Obviously, clients have got quite tight brand guidelines. Each one of them will have different approach to brand. How are you able to utilize that without decimating what their brand looks like?
Yeah, I can take that from Harry. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely really heavy on comms with clients. Obviously, if you are working agency side, definitely make sure you're getting sign off on that kind of thing. The other slight pitfall at the moment with Product Studio in particular, which Harry was running through, is the scalability of it. So at the moment, you can make a change to an image, but you can only make it to that image, if that makes sense. You can't roll that out blanketly across all of your products. So it really is a case of testing a couple of things, seeing what works, and then almost taking that information and trying to scale it up, for example, with maybe a platform like Canva, for example, where you might edit your images and upload that way.
I agree. I'd build on that as well and just say, in terms of getting what you want out of it, that's where, when I mentioned about the prompts, it's so important to keep trying different prompts. if you find a prompt that particularly works with Product Studio, then keep it and kind of reverse engineer it to keep doing that. In terms of performance, we've seen higher click-through rates on some of those lifestyle images, so it's definitely worth texting just for that. And then on what Josh mentioned about cloning products and trying different product titles and stuff like that, we've also seen higher conversion rates in some of the accounts we've worked on. If you try, putting certain things at the beginning rather than at the end and try those against each other within the ads platform, that works really well.
That's brilliant insights. I know we've got a high five from Daniel here, and also a question for him. So let me just bring up the question. While you're having a read of that, I'm in the Bristol office today, and I know we've got Danny, our head of paid media, in today, who, I mean, is obsessed with shopping feed optimization, because it is one of the ways to help with those marginal gains. And so was definitely high-fiving from across the office those points that you were making today. But Daniel was asking us, do you find that simple uncluttered images are best? I see a lot of designers using leaf shadows, etc., to add interest to product shots. And don't forget, I've been doing this a very long time, and I remember, it was all about very clean images, white background. There were rules around it. So what are you finding? Who wants to jump in on this?
I would generally say uncluttered, definitely. There are still some regulations in terms of what we can have in terms of overlays on images, and you can't really have any like promotional roundels and things like that. So uncluttered, definitely. But I mean, we've tested things like as simple as having a colored background versus not, for example, to stand out. So it's still pretty clean and simple, but you're adding something to just at least make the product pop or stand out within those listings. But yeah, I would definitely stick to uncluttered, but you can still test within that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's the main point, isn't it? Is it testing? And in order to be able to test effectively, not only should you be following Josh's advice there, but you should also be making sure that your measurement is really, really tied down. Because if you start testing without the accurate measurement, then you won't know what's working and what's not working. Ian's on leave at the moment, our head of data and analytics. He's, of course, watching from his sun lounger somewhere. But he's saying the same, his catchphrase is bad data equals bad everything. And it matters with this as well. If you've got proper, robust measurement, you're able to see that sometimes the product that people click on and come through to your website is not the product that they end up buying. Insert pink suitcase theory here. But a robust measurement strategy means that at least you're able to see that, especially if you're using additional tools like CLAR, Smart. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Suite Analytics, sorry, there was a beat there. Suite Analytics, perhaps Converge, to be able to bring that data if you're using Shopify.
I'll just add a little bit onto what I just said in that question as well. I would definitely still make sure as well that whatever image you're using still is showing off the product that we're pushing. We see that's where it can fall down a little bit sometimes, especially if it's a lifestyle image. It can be quite difficult. If we're selling shoes and we've got a full outfit in the picture, it's difficult to know the user what exactly they're seeing, especially on mobile. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've just popped up here the QR code for our resources page. Sign up because we host events. There's a brilliant blog that Josh was just talking about there about the 7 ways of improving. I think this might even be the exact blog there. There we go. That is the power of having Tanya in the background. But we are here to be as helpful as we possibly can. That's why these guys volunteer their time to put these LinkedIn Lives on. So thank you, guys. I still don't entirely know how you managed to shoehorn Louis Walsh and Jed Wood into a Google shopping webinar, but I am totally here for it. Thanks, everyone, for watching live. And if you're watching it back on playback, do drop us a line and let us know what you thought. But right now, it's time to say